welcome to the Colorado Grain Chain's homeschool webinar series. Without further ado, I'll just introduce Jake. Kim and Jake have been in the food business for almost 15 years, beginning with stints at Frasca Food and Wine and the Kitchen before opening their own bakery in May of 2010. And yes, they will be celebrating their 10-year anniversary in 2 weeks. When the bakery was first opened, it did not cater to the dietary restrictive set. At that time, Jake didn't know that he had celiac disease. That would take almost 3 years to figure out. Once the diagnosis was determined, Kim and Jake spent the next year bringing to life their original recipes in gluten-free form. Over the last 5 years, as the business has grown into manufacturing a line of packaged products for grocery stores around the country, Jake has been able to develop relationships with some of the finest gluten-free grain producers in the country, several of which are right in our own backyard. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Jake. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Sure. So let me ask real quick, is it just going to be questions that are fired at me, or do you want me to just tell more about our sourcing, or what would you like the format to be?
Yeah, anything that makes you most comfortable here, but folks on the call can type into the Q&A to ask a question. That's the easiest way. I'll also be looking through the chat as much as possible, but the Q&A is the best way to kind of formulate questions. I'm happy to shoot them out at you, but if you want to just kind of get started and give an introduction and any presentation you have ready, and then we can go into questions. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds great.
Okay.
August says sure. So we are very much a family-run business. We always have been. We are, like Dan said, doing our 10-year anniversary May 1st. August was born November the same year. So, you know, he's grown up in our cake shop, and now he spends a decent amount of time, especially these days with COVID and everyone staying at home or trying to do their thing. Out at the factory with our staff out there. He's with me most of the time, because Kim, actually, believe it or not, has been helping out a friend of ours who is a doctor and just in need of some support. Yep.
Naturopath, not a doctor.
That's right. So I do have a cake I was thinking we could make today to show you how what we use works. And then I can also speak a little bit about the sourcing that we have and why. I know that the point of this is to focus on Colorado grain, heritage, and staying local. In the gluten-free world, or really in any dietary restrictive world, restrictions are what is unfortunately part of the puzzle of trying to source. And so our grains that we use, primarily oat, we do use brown rice, we do use sorghum, we use a decent amount of seeds like flax and millet. They really aren't sourced much in Colorado. Our sorghum is, but our oat flour comes from Wyoming and Montana. And the reason for that is there are very few true certified gluten-free oat producers, growers, and millers in the U.S. And one in Wyoming is the best for sure in the country, and we've gotten to know them over the last few years, and they're great folks. They come down, they've been down to our bakery a couple of times, and so they're, you know, that's the reality of grains for gluten-free specifically. But they are U.S., they are close to us. Wyoming's just up the road, and yeah, that's the gist. That's the gist of our grains, and how it relates to, I think, this conversation. Let's see what question. Oops. So can I start answering some of these questions?
Absolutely. Whatever works best for you.
If I pull this question and answer up on the screen, does that jam you up, or can you see everything okay?
No, you're good. Yeah.
Okay. So the first question from Monica: what are the best kinds of flours to use for which kind of baking? Great question. Because not all flours that we use work for cookies, cakes, and pancakes. We do have a base primarily. That is oat flour, brown rice, and tapioca. Tapioca is very helpful because it absorbs and holds water pretty well. I mean, without gluten, you know, which is basically a binding agent, you need to stabilize the moisture and the fat in some way. So that's why it's there. Oat flour, really good, really creamy texture. It's has some nuttiness. I mean, it's not dissimilar to wheat in that way, and it has great texture. So,
someone asked something.
what you got?
Someone asked.
Oh yeah, down here.
No, someone asked chat. What's the name of your bakery? Where do you find it?
Oh, good question. Someone asked about what's the name of our bakery and where is it. So our bakery is Kim and Jake's Cakes. That's our original. That's in South Boulder, Table Mesa Shopping Center. And then our manufacturing is out of Longmont, right out by I-25 on 119. So out there is where we receive most of our big batches of raw materials. It's where we ship our big batches of product. The cake shop really is focused on retail and designing new recipes. So they're two different entities under the same kind of ownership, but they operate pretty independently. Okay, did that answer that question? Hopefully, yeah. All right. Let's see. We can just this. Cheryl, if someone doesn't have an aversion to gluten but happens to have a bunch of GF flour on hand, is it okay to mix GF and regular flour? Yeah, it is. It depends on the ratios. I mean, if you're trying to make something like bread that needs a lot of gluten to get the air and to hold it, you need to use more. Or you can add some kind of binder like flax meal, which we use a lot. I'm gonna come over here because we're gonna start making this cake, and you'll see what I mean with our ingredients. We use flax meal a lot, especially when you're doing things that are vegan, or you need a lot of moisture held up. You do have to be careful with flax meal because it can take in a lot of moisture and then make things really gummy. But it is an awesome combo with gluten-free flours. Let's see. Yeah, the brick. No one wants the brick. So that's just about getting air bubbles into your product, whether it's bread or cakes. So you need to have something that will stretch. And we use two things. We use xanthan gum and flax meal are primarily it. Arrowroot will as well, but not as much. Let's see. Are you still making GF bread? Yes, every day we make GF bread. In our flour mixture for the bread, we drop out the rice flours and any other. Really, it's just oat flour and tapioca and flax meal. And the ratios, it's more oat flour than tapioca. And like I say, flax meal it's really amazing in what it can do for stretchiness and moisture content. But you just have to be really careful with how much you use. Nice. Okay, Kim and Jake is the name of the bakery. Oh, yeah, we got that one. All right. We do have an Instagram account. I can send that out. It's what is it? Kim and Jake's. I think it's just at Kim and Jake's. My wife does all this. I'm so sorry. It's so sad. Let's see. Okay, we're gonna drop this down. Shall we get started on doing some baking? You guys up for that? Let's do it. Just doing a quick. Oh, I know. August here. Thank you. He's getting some props on chat over here. This is great. Okay. So he's going to help. What we're going to do is I'm going to grab some gloves.
Should we put it down?
Yeah, we can. Just 1 second. All right. We're gonna make an almond poppy seed cake because it's one of the shop favorites and it's super delicious. Let's go here. I'm gonna get you queued up so you can see what we got going on. We kind of want to fit everything in here, all of us, so I'll get down low and over here. Okay, so I sent the recipe out. Hopefully you all saw it, or at least you have access to it later. We start over here, oil, eggs, vanilla. We use oil instead of butter because oil has more fat. And it helps with gluten-free because it holds also, when you have more fat, it also holds water in, and it works better with xanthan gum. So I know it's funny to say oil has more fat than butter, but when you're baking, it's really important to have consistency in the kind of fats that you work with. And butter, oftentimes, if you have, say, 40 grams of butter, it's probably going to have 10, 14 grams of water in there. It has more protein too. So oil, and especially a neutral oil, is great because the oil doesn't have a lot of additional flavor, whereas butter is fantastic. It tastes great. Sometimes you don't want that flavor in everything that you're doing. So we use oil because if you have 40 grams of oil, it's 40 grams of fat. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna put this in our bowl. We use a 6-quart bowl for this. You don't have to. You could use a little bit smaller. You gonna put that on?
What?
Let's put this on here.
Okay. What level?
What's that?
What level? 2, 4.
All right. Get our mixer.
What level?
Whisk attachment. Nothing crazy.
Dad, what level? 3, 2.
Just start really mixing stuff. All right. You put that on speed 2. Okay. So far, construction is just like really any other cake. You can make this for quick breads, like muffins. What's that?
There are questions coming.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Question is, can you make it without a mixer? You can. Yeah, you can use a bowl and a whisk for everything, which is you need a strong forearm, but we do it, and it's not crazy. The only thing that you need to do with just if you have a whisk is when you add these leavenings. So in here, salt, xanthan gum, baking soda, baking powder. You want to add these in, and you got to whisk it pretty hard. So we're gonna just drop this stuff in right now.
Everyone
okay. August has some ideas. He says we should make this and then take all the questions after.
Because there are a lot of questions coming in.
There are a lot of questions coming up, which I'll get distracted and try to answer them, but we might get them as we go along. All right, do you want to add the sugar?
Sure.
All right.
Whole thing at once?
Yep. Looking good. So we add our sugar to the oil, eggs, baking soda, baking powder, all that stuff, pretty normal. We have that vanilla in there. Okay, you want to turn the speed up a little bit, nice and slow?
4?
Yeah, sure. We're going about halfway up the mixer speed right now. So you can see if you're doing this, well, I don't know if you can see it. If you're doing this by hand, you do have to put some elbow grease in it, but it will work just fine. Okay. Is that?
It looks like 8
Yeah. Okay. Actually, what we'll do is I'm going to actually bring this over to the mixer so you can kind of see down in there what's going on. So it's coming up. It's getting nice and creamy. It's getting a little bit of shine. That's the eggs and the oil. So you're, in a way, you're making like a really luxurious sweet dressing. You're making awesome mayonnaise, kind of. You don't need to take it that far, obviously, but it's just eggs and oil being creamed together. You add the sugar, wait for that to dissolve. Then you basically just add flours. So we combo them in our shop because we use a specific ratio. It's generally 6-part oat, 6-part rice, 2 parts tapioca. We do change this for things like our pancake. Like if you were making pancakes, this ratio, you want to drop out more of the rice flour. You don't really need that. You can sub almond if you want, just because it tastes awesome. You have to be careful because it's a fatty flour, so you have to adjust. You have to adjust some of like your butter or oil content. Otherwise, it's just really greasy, and it'll be hard to stay together if you have too much. You want to add a little bit of this, and then this is our buttermilk, but it's not really. We call it buttermilk, but it's not really true buttermilk. What it is milk, full fat milk. You can use less, 2%. I would not use skim, but full fat milk that we add lemon juice to. Generally, if you were to do 2 cups, you would add at least 2. It's basically a tablespoon a cup. And what that does is it curdles the milk really quick. It gives it awesome flavor, and it makes the cake hold together just a little bit better. You do want to kind of shake it to really incorporate the lemon juice. It'll happen super fast. Mostly you can add vinegar too. It has a slightly different flavor, obviously, and it'll bake a little bit differently. But if you're making something like red velvet, adding vinegar to the milk is really good. So it does vary a little bit on what flavor you're finishing up with. But generally, like 95% of the time, we're just using this. All right, you want to add just a little bit of each?
Okay.
You can put that on speed 1 before you start jumping in there. Yep. Okay, while he's in that, I'm going to go get our poppy seeds. How's it going?
Good.
You doing all right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, now you got some liquid.
What?
Add some liquid.
I did.
Add more.
Okay.
You got to get all of it in there at some point, so you might as well just go. You don't have to be shy.
So I should just add the whole thing?
Come on. Now you need to add the rest of the flour. Right? Okay, while he's finishing that up, we have almond extract. I just put it in the same container we were using for the eggs and the oil. What's nice, sometimes I like to add the almond at the end because if you don't use almond extract very often, the flavor is really different from when you first open it to when you might use it if it's months apart, or generally not if it's weeks, but it does start to fade a little bit. So it's good to get your nose in there and then add it so you kind of get a sense of how strong it's going to be in the cake. So we're going to add, generally for this size, so you would have a tablespoon. So, yeah, about a tablespoon. We're going to add that nice and slow. Cool. Yeah, it smells awesome. So almond extract is from the flour. It's not from the nut. That's important to know. Some folks have nut allergies. You can actually, it's not the same allergy issue that you would have if you were using the flour or the nut. It's good to know that there's a difference and to ask your friend if you're making it for them, or just know that they're different parts of the same. Yeah, get your flour off.
Should I use a spatula?
Sure.
Okay.
Or just your finger. All right. Cool. You put it back on speed. Nice.
Speed what?
That's perfect. Because I'm just going to show them again what the batter looks like before we add the poppy seeds. Okay. So the batter looks like this. It's thinner than a gluten batter, especially if you're using butter. We do that. Well, I mean, we like the texture. It'll bake up awesome. Last we're gonna add is poppy seeds. We're gonna buy these in bulk. 1 cup, which is a lot. I actually calculated out how many it is. It's like millions. Anyways, in they go.
Let
Got
that, you let that stir for
Yep.
a bit.
Okay. Do you want to, oops, I can't see. There we are. There you go. All right, do you want to do the pans? Put the oil in there?
Sure. That,
Just make sure you don't get it on the phone.
oh man,
What's that?
that thing really goes off.
Yeah, do it like this. Let me do it. Okay, you just need a basic fan spray, or you can use just oil, butter, whatever you like. It'll all work. You want to use some kind of parchment in the bottom of the pan. We have the prefab sizes already cut, but you can cut them and do them yourself, but it'll really help the cake come out down the road. Okay.
That just stops it from sticking.
Yeah. That's two. Parchment number 1, parchment number 2. Okay, so at this point, the cake is done. I'm just gonna drop it out, mix it, bring it over here. You want to scrape the sides, but when you don't have to remix it, just scrape it. Make sure that there's nothing too huge sticking to the sides, and then just fold it in with your spatula. Let's do this. How's it look?
Should we show them what it looks like?
What's that? Yeah, I mean, pour it in. How's it look?
Good.
Does it look good?
Yeah.
Okay, scoot over so they can see. I should do this. All right. So here you go. Add this in. Here's the first one. Make sure that they can see how much batter. Oh, it's so bright. Kind of hard to see. Oh, I'll show you how much batter. You kind of want to fill it like a normal size cake. About 3/4 of the way up the pan. Don't let me hit you in the head with this. Nice. All right. Does it look good?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. So here's your pans. 8-inch. It's best if they're straight-sided. Those are like your classic baker's pans. If they're not, that's just fine. When it comes to decorating later, you just want to try to trim those down just as much as you can, so that when you ice the cake, it's straight and you don't have like a ton of icing that's just gonna fall off the side because you put so much on to try to smooth it out. So we're gonna stick this in the oven. We bake at 300 degrees. This will probably take 50 minutes. We do low and slow. It definitely keeps the top from popping up like a dome. What's that?
That was kind of cool. Okay.
It is cool, but it's hard to ice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't need to bake it up. Because you already made one, so I can just show that one. Is it okay?
That one.
Here you go. So here's what's come out of the oven. This you can expect. It's got a little dome, not a lot.
Once you take it out, you want to cut the dome off.
Yep.
So then it's flat and you can
Yep.
slice.
Once it's pan cool to where you can touch it, I like to level it, wrap it, and then we pop it in the freezer. Putting it in the freezer will make it so you can ice it faster, but it's also gonna lock in the moisture into the cake. Because sometimes if you let it sit and it's throwing off heat, it'll be fully baked, it'll look great, but then it's gonna start to dry out. And poppy seeds absorb moisture as they go. So you need it to be fully baked, but you need to err on the side of like just done as opposed to letting it ride for an extra few minutes because of all these other things. Okay, so I can level this and ice it. It takes some time, and because it's not cold, it's going to be a little bit tough. So maybe we'll skip that part today, and we can, most people probably know how to ice a bit, but what you need, straight side, a straight blade, that's it. Depending on what kind of detail you want to give, a small one of these, also straight. Long one of these, this is about 5 inches, also straight. So you're going to stack these cakes up 2 at a time, one and the other. After they've been leveled, spot the stack. Is that? Yeah.
So should we show them?
Yeah. Right. This one on the table is already used from. Okay. Yeah, this one works.
Any knife works with cutting this.
But you want to serrate its best.
Serrate.
All right. We're going to level this. So I'll set it flat on the table, bottom side, and then you just turn the cake. Let's see if you can actually see if I do this. I'm not sure how good the picture is. Tap it
There's
on the
another
table.
one.
Move that out of the way. Slice, just like this. Make sure you don't cut your fingers off.
Yep.
Now, in our cake shop, we save these. And they make an awesome sandwich that you can fill with icing, wrap in plastic, and put in your mouth. After you unwrap it, they freeze really well. Or you can put it, as my mom used to do when she would bake, she would put those in our lunch bags so that we always wanted to have cake, but the icing would always stick to everything by the time we got to it, and that was our favorite part. So this way, all the icing is in there and it's nice and clean. You get to eat it all. So these are good things to hold on to.
Then you want to take off the parchment on the bottom.
Yep. Got to make sure you remove this part.
You wrap it in
cellophane.
And you pop
Now
it in
you
the
can take
freezer.
one of these and stick it in here, stack this like a little sandwich with parchment in the middle, and then wrap it in plastic. Or if you're going to get to it fairly quickly, just stick it in your freezer just like that. Okay, that's baked. You can put these in any format, like a small bread pan, cupcakes, all that. And you can ice them or not ice them. You can use glaze. You can, whatever flavor icing you like with almond. We like cream cheese, almond buttercream, vanilla. Yeah. You're going to eat it right now? August can't resist. He's going to eat some now. Okay, let's see. Let's take some questions. Does that sound good? Can we take questions and fire away? I'll do some chat, and then if we can continue on if we have time.
That sounds great, Jake. I can shoot them out at you if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Michelle was asking that she was saying that she has a daughter with an egg allergy, so she usually uses flaxseed, 1 tablespoon of flaxseed meal with 3 tablespoons of cold water in replacement of eggs. But she was just not sure if the consistency would be off since she would need to replace 6 eggs. If you had any insight on that.
Yeah, you can use flax. It is going to add texture to the cake. I don't find it to be off-putting at all. All of our cakes we do as vegan as well. Almond poppy seed is one of them. We use arrowroot primarily instead of flax because it's more mild. So that replaces eggs for us. We'll increase the fat a little bit We use, yeah, and anyway, you can use all kinds of other milks, but flax does work. Arrowroot works awesome as well.
Okay.
And if you have follow-up questions about specifics in terms of gram weight, I'll get to those. I'll just email them back to you when I have them.
Wonderful. And then Melissa was asking about cinnamon rolls. Do you have any recommendation on flours and what you use for leavening?
Yeah, we will use yeast. We make cinnamon rolls here. We just did some for Easter. It's one of the shop favorites, and it is delicate. They're not going to pop up as much as gluten-based dough, but flaxseed meal goes in there, and a bit of xanthan gum too, and that really will hold. So you get a great lift in the oven. It's going to diminish a bit when you take it out. But those are good combos to make. And yeast is great. It's a quick rise, so you have to use a bit more flax meal, but it'll work great.
Okay, great. And then Allie was mentioning that she needs to avoid oats and tapioca and potato flours just because of inflammation issues.
Sure.
So she was wondering if you have any other ideas for baking, being that she has to rule out many of the gluten-free flours. She tends to use grain-free recipes with eggs and almond and oat flours, but wonder if she's missing any other alternatives.
Sorghum is good. Sorghum is because it has an awesome flavor. It leans in between rice and oat in terms of its flavor profile. Great texture. So that's a good one if you can have it. Instead of tapioca, use arrowroot. You don't need as much arrowroot as you would use in tapioca, but it's a great alternative that we use a lot. Let's see, what else works really well? Almond is good, like we talked about before. It is because it has so much fat in it. You just need to be careful if you're adding butter, oil, and so on, that you just adjust those ratios a little bit. Use less, a bit more liquid to compensate for that. But it's good. We've been making a paleo cookie that uses almond primarily, or almond flour. It's so delicious. It works awesome.
Okay, awesome. And then one final question that's in the question box at this point is, what temperature and time if you convert to cupcakes?
Great question. Yeah, awesome. Let's say we use like classic normal size cupcake. I'll pull one out. Like this, 2 inches across at the top, 1.25 inches tall, like your basic paper size. It's 22-ish minutes, 300 degrees. Every cake we make is 300 degrees. We do use a convection oven, so that speeds the process up. Convection means there's air being circulated by a fan inside the oven. So you do need to just adjust a little bit for that. I would keep the temperature the same. Just know you might need 2 more minutes maybe in the home oven.
Okay, great.
Nice.
And then there's a question specifically for your audio visual engineer / sous chef for August. What is his favorite cake?
Oh, child, what's your favorite cake?
Chocolate strawberry.
Oh, chocolate strawberry.
But my dad is now making cake from.
I know, the team does. All right, chocolate strawberry. That's the one.
Who had the idea?
That's the one.
Okay, great. And yeah, there's definitely been some requests for, the recipe. We'd be happy to send all the registrants, since we have your emails when you're registered, we can definitely send you a copy of the recipe and with that YouTube link as well, once that's available, so folks can re-access that. Let's see. And then one other question that came in here. Can you share the flour combo / percentages quantity again, I should say?
Sure. So for what we use for our cakes and so on, it's 6 parts oat flour, 6 parts brown rice flour, 2 parts tapioca. And I use parts because it's easier than weights. If you have 1 cup of tapioca, then, you know, it's easier to scale up and scale back that way.
Okay, well, wonderful. And then, yeah, anything else you want to add, Jake?
Thanks
Or
for
August?
having us. It's great.
Yeah.
You know, if we can help we love helping people experiment. We have a lot of tools here, and you know, there's a lot we didn't obviously cover. So if you have questions, especially if you're trying to make a specific kind of cake, go ahead and fire away. I'll get right back to you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we are. Oh, what's that? What's that, August?
I think we might do another one of this thing, in case anyone's wondering.
That would be great. Yeah. Well, we are so grateful for your time, and also your willingness to share that recipe. That's just really great for folks to be able to access. I should say too, you know, the best way to find out about these is to you can sign up at coloradograinchain.com to receive emails. They send out an RSVP 24 hours in advance, and then they try to do further advance for members of the Colorado Grain Chain. Consumer membership is currently $40 a year, but it doesn't really matter who you are. If you're a consumer, if you're a brewer, a baker, a distiller, a miller, a farmer, there's a place for you in the Colorado Grain Chain. So we are so grateful for you, and you can find out more information at grainchain.com. And then, I should also mention just one more time too, the Instagram, your guys' Instagram, it was at KJ Cakes. And then also it was Kim and Jake's Gluten-free for the production side.
Yeah, thanks.
And then you guys have kimandjakescakes.com as your website. So folks can get a hold of you and access all that great gluten-free options.
Sure.
So
Let me jump in really quick, because our primary site is just kimandjakes.com. Kim and Jake's Cakes is our sister site. You will get to it from kimandjakes.com, but it's better to go just directly to the Kim and Jake's site. We'll get to your emails a lot faster.
Okay, great. Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jake and August. Have a great day, and stay well and healthy.
Yeah, thanks. You too, everybody. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Great.
Say bye.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.